I've heard you say now a couple of times that states will not be able to change the content standards. What exactly do you mean by that, and how does that affect curriculum?
Common Core proponents claim that these are just standards, not curriculum, and states will be in charge of their own curricula. But this claim is misleading at best. The point of standards is to drive curriculum. Standards say what should be taught in the classroom. The curriculum just adds the details. And we know that what's on the national tests will very concretely dictate curriculum. The two testing consortia admitted in their applications for federal grants that they would use the money to develop curriculum models. And the U.S. Department of Education bragged about this when it made the grants. So, the inevitable result of the Common Core scheme will be a national curriculum.
Is this legal?
No. The U.S. Constitution leaves education policy to the states. Despite this, both parties have been trying to centralize educational control in Washington for years. Even so, Congress has passed 3 separate statutes prohibiting the U.S. Department of Education from supervising, directing, or controlling curriculum. By coercing states into Common Core and funding national tests that will dictate curriculum, the Obama administration is violating 3 statutes.
What exactly is a state committing to when it agrees to adopt Common Core?
By committing to Common Core, a state agrees to implement the standards word for word. It may not change anything, it may not delete anything. It may add a small amount of content, but no more than 15% of any content area. 15% doesn't sound like state taxpayers and parents have control to me, yet they still have to pay the bills while their voices are shut out of the process. In Georgia, state and local taxpayers support K-12 education with almost $13 billion of their hard-earned tax money every year. Yet the federal government, with a mere $400 million of Race to the Top grant money, is telling these taxpayers, parents, teachers, and even our legislators that they cannot touch the content of the standards. It makes me wonder if we have lost the foundational principle of representational government.
If states are locked into these content standards, what happens if parents or teachers determine that some aspect of Common Core isn't working in the classroom?
There will be no one to call. No one in the state, not the local school principal, not the superintendent, not the local school board, not the state school superintendent, not the legislators, not the governor. No one will have any power to change any standard. Which leads to a disturbing question. Who will have control over the standards in the future? To revise them if they aren't working in the classroom? Common Core is owned and copyrighted by the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers. So what does this mean for parents? It means parents will have no way of knowing the identities and positions of the people in charge of the standards. We will truly have anonymous people controlling our children's education. This is education without representation.
Okay, I get the fact that this makes an end run around state control of education in total violation of that principle of federalism our founders gave us. But what about the standards themselves?
Common Core proponents claim the standards are rigorous and will make our students college ready. Well, not exactly. One of the drafters of the math standards admitted that the college they will prepare our children for is a non-selective community college, not a 4-year university. At one point, the creators of Common Core claimed the standards were internationally benchmarked and that they were as rigorous as those in countries whose students score the highest on international tests. But the Common Core Validation Committee was never shown any evidence of this. And the Common Core website no longer even claims that the standards are internationally benchmarked. Instead, it now says they are informed by the standards of other countries, whatever that means. Let's look at the quality of the standards specifically. First, the math standards. Dr. James Milgram of Stanford University, the only mathematician on the validation committee, said that it's almost a joke that a student would be prepared for university-level math after having completed the Common Core curriculum. One problem is that Common Core moves Algebra 1 from 8th grade to 9th grade, which means it will be more difficult for most students to reach calculus in high school, as expected by selective universities. Another problem, it will teach geometry by an experimental method never used successfully anywhere in the world. And remember, a teacher who sees that this experiment isn't working will have no one to go to in order to get it changed. Other problems with Common Core's math standards led Dr. Milgram to conclude that by 8th grade, our students will be about 2 years behind those of the highest achieving countries. Moving on to the English language arts standards. This is where we see the really troubling philosophy behind Common Core. Dr. Sandra Stotsky, who served on the validation committee but refused to sign off on the English language arts standards because they were so inadequate, described them as empty skill sets that won't prepare students for authentic college coursework. From what she has seen of the standards and the drafter's commentary, she's afraid the reading level that will deem students college ready will be about 7th grade level. Even more troubling is Common Core's de-emphasis on studying classic literature in favor of reading nonfiction informational texts, such as technical manuals and brochures. One education publisher even includes teaching restaurant menus rather than literature. It's not clear exactly how much literature study is to be replaced by informational text, but the creators of the English standards suggest at least 50% of the reading in English classes should be nonfiction rather than literature. And there are several problems with this. First, most English teachers in the country have not been trained to teach this kind of material, nor would the good ones want to. So those who don't quit in frustration will have to be retrained. Second, what little teacher training there has been has instructed teachers to treat our most important historical documents, such as the Gettysburg Address, as if they were just sentences on a page, without context and without cultural importance. However, the most serious problem is the philosophy behind this approach, the philosophy that children shouldn't be overeducated, shouldn't spend time studying something that won't give them practical assistance in their future jobs, that the point of education is to train children to be cogs in a government-managed economic machine, not to educate them to be informed, thinking citizens in a democratic republic, to be better human beings. That is what studying great literature can do for students, but that's what Common Core seeks to minimize. By the way, the Fordham Institute, a think tank that is a cheerleader for Common Core, did a study of state standards and concluded that Georgia's current math and English language arts standards are generally as good as Common Core and in some aspects superior. So why are we shackling ourselves to a rigid national scheme when the product isn't even better than what we had? The education establishment, as well as the many vendors set to make money on Common Core through our tax dollars, have been lobbying teachers and local school systems for months with assurances that Common Core is the magic bullet to solve our education problems. But because the standards have been implemented so far primarily in the lower grades, where they are less objectionable, the teachers who will be the most adversely affected don't really know what they're in for. The big teachers' unions, such as the National Education Association and the American Federation of Teachers, that are supporting Common Core are doing their members no favors.